Hello and welcome to Unapologetic, the UK show on politics, news and stuff from a right of centre viewpoint. And we've got our usuals with us today. We've got Sam.
Hi.
We've got Susan.
Hello.
And we actually have a little surprise guest over the corner who's not going to be doing much talking, but we'll say hello, Abby.
Hi.
Okay, Abby's just sitting in really and listening while we talk, but we might bring her in perhaps another time and we'll get her picture up on the screen then. Okay, so first up today, we've got some news. We'll go back to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, and the usual Brexit arguments and stories, but there were some interesting developments this week. So first of all, a news story came out and it said court papers say UK's Johnson would seek delay if no deal. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson would seek an extension to the October the 31st Brexit deadline if no withdrawal deal with the European Union is reached by mid-October, according to documents read aloud in a Scottish court on Friday. And of course that's the key, because immediately an argument started over whether this was a real story or whether it was a rehashed story from what the courts had said. So what do you think it was, Sam? Do you think it was a real story or a pretend? Is it fake news or not?
It is fake news, I already know. It is definitely fake news. I did a bit of Googling and yeah, basically it's just repeating what's in the Surrender Act. So he does technically legally, but if you know he's already said that he's going to follow the law. But we are going to leave on the 31st. And I was reading something this morning, actually, an interesting article, where they were saying that the withdrawal bill actually supersedes the Surrender Act. And apparently EU, when there's a difference between EU law and British law, EU law trumps it. And they actually believe that when Boris is saying he's going to follow the law, he means he's going to be following EU law, which will be a bit of a delicious irony.
Yeah. What do you think, Susan?
Well, the same as some on the political side, but it doesn't. I was more interested in the people's kind of reaction to it, that they were just kind of, I don't know, like beating down dogs, like they just accepted it, like, oh well, that's another kick in the teeth. So I'm glad it is fake news. Yeah,
people are too quick to just believe what they read, aren't they? This story came out and people who real strong Brexiteers were like, oh, that's it, we've been betrayed again. And of course, there was nothing new in this story. There's nothing new. It was a cleverly rehashed way of saying some of the things that have already been said, but presenting them as though it was new information. I mean, that's a special new sort of fake news, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the worrying thing about the news, is that they can pass off stuff that people are going to believe is fact, and that's quite dangerous, really.
Well, Boris Johnson came out swinging. He declared that he'd rather be dead in a ditch than ask for an extension. So I think that's reasonably clear. He apparently last night defiantly tweeted, "New deal or no deal, but no delay." I mean, he couldn't be much clearer than this, could he?
No.
What do you think, Susan?
No, to be fair to him, he's not wavered at all on what he's been saying since he got in, has he? He's very much a case of we're in or out, or we're not in or out. We've got to have a deal or no deal, and either way we're going to be out. So.
I mean, people seem to be split between whether they think he's just bumbling along trying to find a way through, or whether he's playing kind of 4D chess. And no one's quite sure the level of strategy involved. But I mean, the Cummins fellow's a clever fellow, isn't he? And everyone says he's a real clever strategist. So it could well be that there's more going on. But we don't know which side is cleverer. I mean, he's produced this new deal. And the new deal, immediately, I think the EU have said they're not going to agree to the new deal. And there people are saying, well, he knew they were going to say that. And other people are saying, no, he didn't. He thought it was going to get through. What do you think's true, Susan?
Well, either way, it's a no-win situation, is it? Because if he puts a really good deal on the table and everyone vetoes it, it's because he knew it and that's what he was trying to get at. So either way, he's never going to come out smelling of roses. Unless he comes out.
It depends on your viewpoint. If he does what he says he's going to do and we leave, then Brexiteers for sure are going to be cheering, aren't they?
Oh, and they're going to be talking about it for years on end, the opposition though, aren't they? They're going to be talking about how he acts the bumbling fool but is horrifically intelligent, and how he saw this 14 years ago and he's been plotting this for... They're going to come out with it all like he's got a little back cave somewhere and he's been thinking about all what he's going to be doing. So.
Well, I don't think that's entirely off the question. I mean, he's a clever guy. He's got this persona, and I think the persona is partially true, but people are not just one thing, are they? No. People can be fun and entertaining and charismatic, but also have a very intelligent side. And he is a clever guy, don't you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a plan up his sleeve. I mean, even if it's just to buy time, because he doesn't actually have to go back to Parliament until the 19th of October, and then it's only 12 days away until we leave. So maybe his plan is to kind of say, oh, the deal didn't work, I'll try and renegotiate and buy a couple of days and just keep buying time until the 31st comes.
I mean, there are some suggestions that there might be a lifeline from Hungary, because even if Boris were to do what the law says he's got to do and write for an extension. And I've heard that from one person say, well, he might write for an extension of 10 minutes, which still follows the law but doesn't create any problem. Of course, he might write an extension, and then Hungary could possibly veto it, which they're allowed to do. I mean, the fed up Hungarian minister, and there's a news report this week, the Hungarian foreign minister said he is really fed up with Europe's approach to Brexit, warning Brussels to stop diminishing the importance of UK exiting the bloc. The Hungarian politician claimed that UK represents 14% of the achievements of the European economy. And he accused Brussels of attempting to diminish the significance of Brexit. He told BBC's Newsnight, "We are really fed up with all those approaches in Europe and in the world when some countries think that it's homework for them to lecture others." So that, I mean, it seems to suggest there's some splits, certainly out in Europe, and we have allies there. Well, certainly the Brexit side of the UK has allies. What do you think of that, Sam?
I don't know. I think if Boris was smart, he would. I would say, if I was him, we have to pay the EU 350 billion if we stay. So I'd say to any country that I was relatively friendly with, please veto this and we'll give you 350 billion. We're not worse off financially than we get out. And they get 350. It's quite a lot of projects.
Can't you imagine the Remain side losing their minds over that one? Yeah. What do you think, Susan?
I think it's really good that people are starting to stand up and say this is not okay. This really isn't okay, no matter which way you look at it. And if anybody stands up and vetoes any deal to get us out, I'm backing him 100% on that one.
I think Boris might actually have a number of plans. He might. I don't think any one of these is a solo plan. I think he could have a number of different backup plans, so that if one fails, he can roll on to another. And I wouldn't be betting against him at this stage. He seems so sure. When a politician is prepared to commit themselves so much over and over again, and they're the Prime Minister, I mean, he seems pretty sure. If he then can't deliver this on the 31st, well, I just have to then question whether he really knew what he was doing, but he seems to me.
Mm. Well, I remember when I first got involved in politics of all of like 4 months ago, I remember someone telling me that a good politician is someone that doesn't mind standing up and making a change, and even if that causes waves, at least doing something, anything as long as it's something. And that's what I like about Boris. He's not talking about it. His plans aren't talking about it and researching it and thinking about years down the line. He's doing something.
Yeah.
A change is something.
Yeah.
And I think even if you hate the guy, he's at least doing something.
Yeah, I'm sorry my phone rang during the middle of your speech there. Probably should have prepped that a little bit better, but never mind. No, I think you're right. So just moving on now, because we've had enough, I think, of Brexit for the minute, and it just goes on and on, doesn't it? And there's always more happening. But I wanted to move on to the controversy surrounding one of the new movies that's out at the moment, and that's Joker, which has hit movie theatres this week, despite a wave of criticism that it glorifies a killer and could encourage copycat attacks nationwide. Now, I've got to say, this hasn't affected us so much in the UK, but in America, there's massive controversy. But actually, even the Daily Mail Daily Mail Online has caught on to some of this, and I'll just read you the report. So, it's way too terrifying. Joker viewers around the globe walk out of movie theatres, they claim, and urge cinemas to ban the controversial film amid ongoing concerns over glamorising gun crime. Movie lovers hit out at the film, which sees, how do you say his name? Joaquin Phoenix? Joaquin? I'm not quite sure. I think, is it Joaquin Phoenix? Portray Arthur Fleck, the embattled clown who transforms into Batman's most iconic nemesis. Joker has been plagued with controversy due to the excessive violence and gun use, while others insist the movie forces viewers to sympathise with the anti-hero. A fan claimed Joker was too terrifying and considered what is going on in the world. So, interesting, but then the controversial film did score an incredible October box office record with an eye-popping 13.3 million earned in Thursday night showings. So it's doing really well despite the controversy. But staying away from the actual movie, which I know we've all seen, and just looking at the politics so far, what do you make of that, Sam?
I don't know. I don't think that... They said it about everything, don't they? Is it glorifying any kind of film like they did in the 80s with the video nasty and said it was glorifying things? I don't think films make people do bad stuff. I think if people are going to do bad stuff, they're going to do bad stuff. And seeing that movie, without trying to get too much into it, I don't see how someone would want to be him, personally.
I mean, we'll get into kind of a review of the movie after this, but I mean, we all saw it yesterday, didn't we? Separately, but we all saw it. And I was struck by... I thought it was a good film. We'll get to the cover in a minute. But what was surprised me is, in America they've had police in the cinemas, they've called the army onto alert, and most of this, I mean, the argument over there is this. Basically, the people on the left are saying they're upset that it's a white man that is the anti-hero, if you like, and they're moaning about the fact that about his privilege, and that we shouldn't be sympathising with him, and they made that case initially, and then they were calling, yeah, absolutely, I know you're looking at me strangely.
I really am.
That is the argument they made, and they weren't very happy with it, and then they've made these kind of demands, and it almost seems like they are wishing that something will happen. And they keep going on about how there's going to be a shooting or whatever, and it's almost like they want it to happen, so they can then say, you see, you shouldn't have made this movie.
I'll tell you why they don't like it. The reason they don't like it is because the bad guys in it are really I suppose what you could argue, the poor people. So what they're saying is Thomas Wayne and Bruce Wayne, the rich people, are actually the good guys in this movie. So it's not like an anti-rich film, although it technically is. The actual good guys are the rich people. The bad guys are poor people, and what it was basically saying is if you're a protester and protesting against the rich, you are being led by a psychopath. That's kind of a message you could read from it, so I think that's probably why they don't like it. But I also think on another level, actually, could you argue that it's a bit like a Brexit argument, isn't it? You kind of got like an in or out, and one side's the Remain that are kind of the elite thinking they can do everything, and the other side's the Leave. I don't know.
You see, things are so topsy-turvy, aren't they? I mean, I think you could almost take any politics you wanted to out of it. And I think that's the mark of a good movie, actually. Because I took from it that the rich people were almost like the liberals in America, and that the people on the streets were almost the right-wingers. But it's not as clear-cut as that, because it kind of swings around, and you're never quite sure what's real and what isn't, and what's true and what isn't. But the politics of it seems to be that they made a great big fuss about it, and all the critics were panning it and saying it was dangerous, and yet the audience scores on things like Rotten Tomatoes are really good, and the sellout on the first day.
Yeah, but it's because, isn't it? It's, I think what I said in the beginning is true. The rich people are the good guys. Thomas Wayne, he's rich and he wants to be the mayor, but he's actually not a bad guy. He's had a pretty okay life. He's not done anything good, he's just tried to help people. He's got a little son who's a nice guy who, without doing too many spoilers,
be careful of spoilers,
when everyone knows Bruce Wayne's Batman, it's not exactly a spoiler if you don't know that, then it's pretty stupid. But the rich people are the really good guys.
Yeah, but they are really patronising though. I need to help people. That is such a patronising deficit model.
I mean, we'll move on to the actual movie, because that's what I loved about it. The fact that you could see it in so many different ways, and you could really read into the story your own politics and choose who were the people you thought, because you could look at it so many ways. I mean, without wanting to give too many spoilers, it wasn't even you weren't even completely sure, if you think of what happened at the very end, that Thomas Wayne was in the right. Because what seems to happen, I'm not going to spoil it, but the story twists and turns a little bit as to what's real and what isn't. And even at the end, there's a nudge saying, well, what you've thought up till now isn't quite right, because he looks at that photograph at the end, which I won't say any more about. I mean, what did you think of the movie, Sam?
I really liked it. I mean, it wasn't an action-packed superhero movie. It was literally just like a pastiche on someone's life. But I liked how it changed so many times how I felt about him. So I went from a couple of times actually feeling really sorry for him, and actually one time I actually cried because I felt so sorry for him. And then he's looking at me like, what? When he found out he was abused as a kid, I mean, how can you not cry?
How did you not know that? Oh, how did you not know that was going to come out?
But yeah, that kind of, was really sad. But then there was a number of times I really hated him, and I've never been in a film, because it's usually pretty clear cut, you even though if it often starts with you liking them, then you hate them, but this was like a like, then a hate, then a like, then a hate, then a like, then a hate, and it was really mixed emotions for the guy, really.
Yeah. Susan? You weren't so keen, were you?
No, I weren't. I really weren't. It's probably because it was so well done that all I could think about is the failing of the referral systems and how we didn't catch and how this poor child...
Yeah, the social worker came out.
And all this kind of thing about, oh my goodness, how did this poor person ever get to this stage, and we should never have allowed it. So yeah, that no, I wasn't a fan of it. I can definitely see how it has caused that mob mentality though. I mean, it's the same with the internet. If you create a safe space for people and don't challenge the behaviours within that safe space, if you're surrounded by yes people, then what happens is that the boundaries get lost and the moral compass gets lost, and then people start doing bigger and badder things. So I can see how that does, because it links people up with a common interest. So I can definitely see how it would cause issues, especially then when you hand people guns. It's got, unlike here, riots, smashing windows and
you would
throwing fire.
You would think the left would have liked it, because it was sort of framed, you know, it was very anti-establishment and anti the rich, and it was the moment when he gets the gun where things change, really turn different. And
No, he wasn't a good guy.
No, I know he wasn't, but my
So
point.
it's kind of saying, you know, it's anti-establishment, but the establishment are in the right. You know, these anti-establishment people. That's what it's effectively saying. These anti-establishment people are being led by a madman. I mean, this guy is completely insane. Absolutely and utterly insane,
and yet it did make.
He is.
Well, I mean, there were people in the audience who were like, "Yes, I heard them." When somebody really seemed to deserve some sort of punishment, and he delivered it. But you know, if you looked at it in the real world, there's no way you would advocate murder on someone who behaved like that. I mean, it wasn't nice behaviour. Don't get me wrong, but you wouldn't advocate murder unless you were pretty extreme, would you?
Yeah, but that's the whole point of films, isn't it? It's supposed to kind of bring out the emotions. You know, if you go watch Rocky or whatever else, I instantly feel that I can just start jumping up, boxing, I can take on anyone. And so the films are supposed to do that. The difference is that we're grounded enough in reality to come out of that cinema and go like, oh yeah, it was a really cool movie, or yeah, it was really bad.
I was surprised it was a 15 though, because there was one particularly violent scene which I was very surprised was a 15.
Yeah, that scene. I mean, I think these days they're pretty relaxed about it, about violence. I think it's more some other things that they worry about. But that scene was quite extreme. I know the one you mean.
I was like, ooh.
The one in the apartment. Let's say no more than that.
Yeah. I went to watch a film a little while ago, and it was a 12A, and it was extremely sexualised, like really sexualised, to the point where I nearly got up and left because I had like little. Abby's nodding. I was like, oh my goodness, how could we possibly allow children to sit through these movies and think that's okay? So I did find it was quite ironic that that's a 15.
But what about this business about it being excessive violence and gun use? Now, I would say that's completely wrong. There were a few scenes, maybe 5, of violence and gun use, but I mean, I've seen Tarantino movies and the like, many movies that even kind of mainstream action movies have more violence and gun use than that.
Yeah. But people get nervous when there's no actual cause behind it as such. So like Rambo movie, that was constant bloodshed. I mean, Jesus, the amount of times I had to look away from the screen, that was really full on.
By the way, brilliant movie, guys. Go see the new Rambo.
Yeah, that was very good. But with this one, you can't stop a psychopath like that. You can't. I mean, to be fair, I'd have picked that up and we'd have sorted him out long in this country, long before he ever, you know.
Yeah, but calling 5 scenes excessive and violent gun use, what do you think, Sam?
I don't think there's much excessive gun use at all. But
I mean, it's almost a false sell, isn't it? If you go there expecting another Rambo almost, and then you get that, which was actually quite a slow movie.
But then I suppose, is it kind of the argument that in a number of occasions it's almost framed that you think it's okay for what he's done? And I suppose it's that kind of maybe where the angle people are coming from. Like, it's almost saying it was okay to murder people because of X, Y, Z reason.
Because to be fair, how many times did he murder someone you kind of went, fair play?
Yeah, but there's no. I mean, it's very. You hate him by the end, don't you? Really, you hate him.
No, I didn't. My husband really liked it. I didn't hate him by the end. I can totally see where he got to that stage, and there has to be that almost respect for him. The fact that he has survived to get to there. Is he a nice person? No. Do I want to meet him? No.
Is it bad that when I left, I was like, because we went as a group of friends, and I was like, I think I could fix that guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was thinking, there were so many opportunities for professionals to notice what was going on and not just like ignore the poor man.
I'm sorry, do you mean as a professional or as a girlfriend? What are we talking about here?
A girlfriend, yeah.
Because the Joker's got a girlfriend, and it's Harley Quinn, right? And you're not going to mess with her. It's not a good plan.
Yeah, I can't say because it's a spoiler,
really.
But
no, she's not really. No, she just wants to be. Yeah. Let's not get too much into geekdom, shall we? Okay, so we had a good chat about it. I think it's interesting. I can't believe that they had police in every cinema, and in places like California, they had police rolled out, and the army was ready, and it's just mad, isn't it?
Although interestingly, when we went to see it. Because you went to the early show, didn't you? We went to the later show, and then there was some people asked to leave, but I don't think it was anything to do with the film. I think that was just because I had no shirt on. I was talking like excessively.
No shirt on?
Yeah, when I went out to go to the loo, the woman was like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just going for a wee." And she was like, "Oh, because there's been loads of problems in your cinema because these people were talking with their shirt off." And I was like, "Oh, we didn't hear it."
Really? Oh, yeah. Cinema goers that don't adhere to the code really annoy me.
Oh, well, you would
keep your phone off, keep your phone away.
I was next to Gabbers yesterday. They were talk the whole way through.
No, I'll get up and move. I can't do that.
one of the things about watching things in cinemas is you have to bear in mind that there'll be other people there.
Oh,
It's
I
part of
know.
the fun, isn't it?
No, that's the drawback.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's move on. So the last one, I'm going to get back to the weather again. I know it's a very British thing to get to the weather, but we saw that the Express were claiming we were heading for this freezing cold winter, and we always ignore the Express because they say it every year. But in fact, several other newspapers are now backing it up. And let me just read you a report from the Sun. I admit, not very much higher up than the Express,
No, not
but
really.
Britain could be set for one of the coldest winters in 30 years, bringing snow event after snow event along with it. Temperatures could take a turn for the worse in the second half of this month if the long-range forecasts are correct. Freezing air from the North Pole heading down to the UK is expected to bring a band of low pressure stretching from Greenland to the northwest coast of Ireland. However, experts are still divided on their predictions as long-range forecasting is notoriously difficult.
So what do they keep going on about it for if they don't know?
Well, it's a good story, isn't it? Everyone thinks, whoa, it gets the clicks.
Oh, it just goes on and
Well,
on
maybe
and
you
on.
might be able to go skiing in England.
Well, the climate alarmists seem to think they know long-range forecasting pretty good, don't they?
Oh,
Yeah.
we go sledging, Abby, can't we? We do like a bit of sledging. I know it's their only thing they've got is the weather, but you don't need to keep going on about it when we've actually not, we've not actually had it yet. Just chill. We'll find out what it's like when we tell you.
Just chill.
Just boom boom.
Well, I quite like a bit of snow, but obviously when it gets really cold, it does cause there's an increase in people dying because of the coldness.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's
I
a
forgot
sad
about
side
that.
of it, and one we've got to watch for. But from a positive side, it makes everywhere look kind of nice, and kids have fun, and it's good.
Yeah.
So it's an up and
Yeah, but
down
it's
sort
like
of
on
weather.
the gone on the days we've been able to have days off work and stuff. Not really acceptable, is it? So you have to sort of trudge in the snow.
No, they give us laptops so you can work from home.
Yeah, if you're going to drive there, you've got to drive carefully because I know somebody who was driving to work and the car span out of control. And somebody very near to
I don't-
us right now.
Yeah. Was that you, Sam? I'm not a fan of
It's all
driving
right.
in the bad weather. But to be fair, it does cost the country like billions of pounds, doesn't it, in the lost revenue with only a few days of snow?
Yeah, but so do lots of things. So does excessive heat and excessive rain and flooding. So pretty much all the weather things can do that. But I remember that we were told we were heading for the back end of a hurricane this week, and that.
Yes, have you not seen the Met Office?
No, I haven't. What's the story?
Well, it's like from 1 o'clock in the morning till like midnight tomorrow night. It's solid rain, 95% chance all day.
Oh, so it's still
Severe
coming.
weather warning. Yeah, do you not even read the news?
No.
Well, I read it they said it was coming on Thursday, so now it's just arrived a
No,
bit
if
late.
you
I
look,
knew it was gonna
literally, if you
rain.
go onto the Met Office, the hour by hour, it's like every hour is like rain.
Do you
rain.
check the Met Office often?
Yeah, I do
Oh.
actually. We should actually do a podcast about which is the most accurate weather app because I sometimes check the Met Office, BBC, and AccuWeather.
I predict that to be
BBC
the
is
lowest
often-
scoring viewers of any podcast we've ever done. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for today.
I think the Met Office is actually the worst because I think they'll get funding to.
I'm old school. I like to look out the window and then I'll figure out what.
Yeah,
the
but
weather
that's a mistake because I've done that. You get up in the morning, it looks sunny, and you wear a sunny dress, and then you get wet.
I'm sorry, listeners, I don't know how to stop the meteorologists in the room. They just can't seem to stop. But okay, thank you very much for all your opinions today. I hope you've enjoyed our podcast. Please, if it is flooding and raining over the next day or so, be careful and be safe. Until then, say goodbye, Sam.
Goodbye, Sam.
Say goodbye, Susan.
Goodbye, Susan.
And that's it from Unapologetic, the UK podcast on politics, news and stuff from a right of centre viewpoint.